What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. I've been thinking long and hard about how I want to do this video. I actually had pulled up about 40 different news stories that are just shockingly communistic, Marxist, philosophy, Orwellian, whatever you want to say. The worst of the worst things that are possible are happening right here, unfolding before our very eyes, right here in our country. And, one of the things I was thinking about to try to explain to you kind of the way I feel about this is it's sort of like if you were watching someone being killed or being directed to suicide themselves, kind of like what's going on up in Canada right now, being, state-assisted suicide or something like that, right? If one of your best friends was being encouraged to do that sort of a thing, and you're like, no, don't do that. That's the wrong answer. Don't do that. Don't kill yourself. That's the way I'm feeling about everything that's going on in the United States of America. Really, since about the end of 2019, since the whole COVID overreaction, Orwellian, draconian laws were implemented around our country, supposedly the land of the free, the home of the brave. Remember that? You couldn't go do certain things. You couldn't go to church. What about the First Amendment? What about, people that wanted to protest against the draconian, Orwellian lockdowns that were going on around the country? They weren't allowed to. But BLM, that was okay. You could go do all the protesting you wanted to do. I don't have to tell you things are bad. You guys know things are bad. So screw all these stories. I'm not going to talk about the stories. I'm going to talk to you about what I'm feeling in my heart about this country. And there's probably only about 2 ways that we can save this thing now. And we'll talk about that later on in the video. But yeah, I have just seen so many things in the past 48 to 72 hours this week that I'm just like, oh my God. For one thing, the Twitter files. We all knew it was happening, and it's not just happening on Twitter. They're not just suppressing conservatives and people that disagree with the MSM narrative on Twitter. It's happening on YouTube as well. I've had several videos removed. I'm being shadow banned right now. It's frustrating as hell as a creator to put out, your hard work and trying to make a video that you think is going to be entertaining, and then YouTube doesn't recommend it to anyone. It's unbelievably one-sided. If I were out here, dressing up in a wig and putting on fake boobs and promoting the LGBTQ agenda, YouTube would probably have my channel on the trending page, and I'd probably be making, more money than I could even think about. But instead, they're punishing my channel. Ever since my last second strike, when they banned me from posting anything for 2 weeks, my monthly views have gone way down. A quarter of my monthly views are gone now because of my last strike. They're hurting me. Nonetheless, they're hurting me. They're taking away my desire to want to do more videos in the future. And it's all a psychological attack. This is like, I don't know what you want to call it, fourth dimensional warfare or whatever. This is the new type of warfare that's going on. They're psychologically attacking America's psyche on a daily basis. The things that you and I know are right, know are good, they're saying they're evil. And promoting things that we know are evil as good. I can't imagine if I were to go back in time. I always go back to this time paradox thing where, would I even believe myself if I were to come back in through a time machine, back to 2015 or, even farther back, 2000, especially 2000, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't have believed the American people would be tolerating this much tyranny. But that's, I can't sugarcoat it anymore. That's what this is. We're being overthrown by tyrants, by people that are authoritarians, that don't value individual liberty and your God-given natural rights that we're all supposed to have here in this country. They don't even value the ones that are enumerated in the Bill of Rights. Biden and his administration and all the Democrats are violating, and some of the Republicans are violating the First Amendment, the freedom of speech. We've already talked about that a little bit, about the COVID lockdowns. You remember all that stuff? The right to assemble, the right for a redress of grievances, right? All of a sudden, during COVID, during the lockdowns, you couldn't assemble anymore. Oh, well, that's a violation of those people's First Amendment rights. And I don't know why. I do know why. Our side isn't lawsuit happy. And maybe that's a problem on our side. We need to start suing. Every single time our rights are violated, we need to be taking it to the Supreme Court, suing all the people that were involved with it, state governments, local governments, whatever, instead of just being like, "Aw, shucks, they didn't mean nothing by it." That's our problem as conservatives. We're too conservative. We're like, "Aw, shucks, surely we won't do that. We won't do the same things. We won't use the same tools the Democrats use against us to win elections. We won't do that. We're too good for that. That's beneath us to go to their level." Meanwhile, what's happening? What happened to the last two elections? I can't go into depth here, or my video and my channel will be nuked. I'm very frustrated. I'm very worried. I don't see very many sparks of hope or optimism, especially when the President of the United States is signing deals for $63 billion to give to the railroad unions. To bolster up their pension funds and things like that. We don't want them running out of money and not having pension funds, even though their idiotic union system was always going to run out of money. So is it up for the federal government to decide with our taxpayer money to bail out these unions like this? I don't believe so. But that's one of the ways they're destroying the buying power of the USD, the US dollar. And it's all being done by design so they can bring in their savior. They're going to save us all, don't you know, with their new, what is it called? CBDC or whatever the hell it's called, their digital dollar that's going to track every single thing you do. Are you worried yet? Or are you one of these people, like most other people, that are just asleep or watching football games or watching whatever, Kardashians or whatever crap they're watching these days, and you're not paying any attention to anything that's going on? You have no idea. And you're going to come into the comments and say, "Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's not that bad. We'll make it through it. We've been through worse stuff." Bullshit. We haven't been through worse stuff. This is tyranny knocking on the door of the United States of America. He's at your front door. He's at your front door, coming to take everything you hold dear, your rights. Just look at what happened. Now, this is in New Zealand, I'll admit, not in the United States of America. But there was a married couple out there, had a daughter, needed some surgery, life-saving surgery, and, they didn't want to get the potentially, how can I say this without getting in trouble? They didn't want to get the mRNA blood in their daughter because they were worried about, who knows, possible side effects or something like that. They wanted pure blood. They wanted blood of the unvaccinated. Well, New Zealand decided, in their infinite authority and power, to come in and take the kid away from those parents. Yeah, there's a video of it. Stealing people's children directly from them. You don't think that could happen to the United States of America? It will. It will happen. It will happen, especially if these people are allowed to continually just get their way and do whatever they want and not be held accountable to the enumerated responsibilities of what their power entails in the Constitution. It's written what the president is allowed to do and what Congress is supposed to do and what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. But they're not following those rules. They're not even following the Bill of Rights anymore. I only just got started with the First Amendment. Now let's talk about the Second Amendment. Biden is saying now he's coming after assault weapons again. And he's made all these idiotic statements over the years like, "Well, you don't need an AR-15 because deer don't wear Kevlar." Ha, 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 ha. Like, that's so funny. What about shall not be infringed? Do you not understand, Joe Biden? Shall not be infringed. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if the American people have the stomach anymore, or the chutzpah, or the gonads, the balls to stand up to tyranny anymore. It doesn't feel like it. Tyranny is has been implemented and is tightening its grip on us every single day through incrementalism. It doesn't feel like anything's happening, but it's getting tighter and tighter and tighter if you're watching what's going on in this country. So yeah, just giving our money away, disregarding First, Second Amendment. What other parts of the Bill of Rights is Joe Biden violating and his administration and the people around him? Well, let's talk about the Fourth Amendment. The one where it says you have the right to be secure in your persons, places, things, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, right? Without due process. You're supposed to have due process. Actually, that one might be in the Fifth Amendment, but the point is, The Fourth, the Fifth Amendment, the First, the Second Amendment are all being shredded right before our very eyes, and no one's doing anything. No one's doing anything. All those J6ers are sitting down there, haven't had due process. It's been over 2 years they've been locked up. Let me ask you a question. Do we have liberty in this country anymore? Do we have freedom in this country anymore? Do we have a constitutional republic anymore? I don't know. My opinion, the answer is no to all of those things. Only as long as the American people tolerate it. As soon as we start asserting ourselves, of course, they're going to label us, violent extremists, militia, terrorists, or whatever. You've seen all the things from the FBI and Joe Biden's DHS labeling anyone that disagrees with them as ultra MAGA extremists, right-wing terrorists, racists, misogynists, homophobes. Anything else they can throw in there along the way. They've got 1,000,001 excuses for all the reasons why things are going to hell in a handbasket. So when they're asked, I can't remember the lady's name, Karine Peri or whatever her name is, the new mouthpiece for the White House, when she's saying, all these idiotic things that make no sense, no one ever holds her accountable. None. There is no accountability. There's no justice anymore, especially not equal justice. There's some justice, but only against ultra MAGA right-wing extremists or people that are deemed to be, Republicans or conservatives or libertarians or anyone non-democratic, not promoting the communist Democrat agenda. And that's what this is. So guys, we're in a world of trouble. We're so far up the creek without the paddle, most of us don't even know where we started from. That's how bad it is. Most people today, because of the public education system and the indoctrination, the communist indoctrination that's been going on for the last 2 or 3 decades or 4 decades now, most people haven't done the research after, they get out of high school and learned, or college or whatever, and learned the truth. What is the truth? The United States of America is a republic. It's governed by the will of we the people. And we're supposed to believe in individual liberty, sovereignty. We should be nationalistic because we're proud of our country. We should have a country that is worthy of being proud of, but we don't. We have a country that we should be ashamed of right now. And whose fault is that? Like the famous line from V for Vendetta, all you have to do is look into a mirror, and I'm talking to myself too. All of us have allowed this to happen by not doing anything, not standing up. I mean, do you think it was easy in 1776 for them to make the decision to fight against the biggest military in the world and declare independence in the United States? No, it wasn't easy. They had to take risks. They had to risk their lives, their comfort, their fortunes, their sacred honor. All this stuff was at risk when our founding fathers made that decision. And that's really what it comes down to. One of the best ways, most effective ways that you can fight back against tyranny across the board is with a simple word: no. It's underutilized today. We need to say no to tyranny. When people start coming around and demanding you do things that are wrong, you say no. Under the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, if a law violates that constitutional law, it is null and void. You need to be sure of that. You need to, make sure you have the legal backing and a legal argument to back that up. But if you're sure of that, and I'm sure about many of the things that are going on in this country right now, especially as it pertains to violating our Bill of Rights, our God-given rights. The only reason they wrote them down was because they were worried that people would lose sight of what our God-given rights were. And boy, were they right. They were dead on right. We need a rejuvenation, a revitalization of this country in the founding principles, not this new world think where anything goes. If you want to go in and steal merchandise from the store, you can do that. Well, as long as you're of a certain persuasion, you can steal all you want. And, because reparations don't, I mean, it's just unfreaking believable. Somebody came in, robbed a convenience store in California. Well, the convenience store clerk pulled out a gun at some point. and pointed it at the guy, or maybe shot at him. I don't remember exactly. But then the thug fired back and killed the guy. Well, they've decided in California that the thug is not going to be charged of murder. It's going to be self-defense. Somehow in their minds, in their screwed up liberal minds, they've justified the murder of this convenience store owner or clerk or whatever that was just trying to defend the store. They've justified it. They say it's okay. The guy's not going to serve any time. Just like the example of what they did to Kyle Rittenhouse back during the Summer of Love. Remember all that, when he was trying to do the right thing and go and protect his city. They brought down the full force of the law, and trust me, they had federal help backing them up, no doubt about it. They still lost, thankfully, but it took away a big chunk of that young man's life, dealing with stuff that he shouldn't have ever had to deal with, legal stuff that he should have never had to deal with. Never. And publicized his life in such a way that should have never happened. He didn't do it for fame. He did it because it was the right thing to do in his mind. And I tend to agree with that. He was right. You go and you defend your cities when you know violent thugs are going to be trying to burn them down like they've done all around the country. Meanwhile, you fast forward to the guy here recently who decided to plow over a young man, a teenage boy, because he said he was a MAGA, extremist or a Republican extremist or something, and was threatening him. So he ran the kid over with his SUV and killed him, and they let him out the next day. That's the double standard. It is in your face now. It's undeniable. And it's all because of, Operation Mockingbird, the CIA getting control of the mainstream media. At least I believe that. And they're still in control. That program never ended. In fact, it just became something else that we don't know about yet. Maybe 50 years from now, through the Freedom of Information Act, the future generations may learn about that. But they probably will be too locked into the tyranny by then to do anything about it. So, I said in the beginning of the video, I was going to say what I think the only two possible ways that we could avoid complete tyranny and takeover, Marxist, communist takeover of the United States, is the nonviolent way, obviously, would be the best, most preferred way. And the only way I see that going is peaceful separation. We need to start as voters. We need to start ringing our congressmen's phones off the hook and saying, hey, I think it's time for my state to secede from the Union. The contract has been broken. Here are 4 examples from the Bill of Rights that the White House and the Congress is violating right now. I want to secede from the Union. The contract has been broken. We didn't break the contract. The federal government broke the contract. Here's how. And be informed about it, be polite and all that stuff. But we need to start pushing for a secession movement in the country. And it's going to take more than just Texas, okay? Texas has been on the scene talking about it for years and years. But they're going to have to get serious down there in Texas. And other states around Texas are going to have to join in. I don't think it's necessarily going to be divided the same way if this all works out the way that one of the possible ways that I see it happening. I don't think it's all going to be divided exactly along like the Mason-Dixon line or anything like that, North versus South necessarily, but it's going to tend to kind of go that way. I think a lot more of the southern states, like for example, from my experience, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, definitely not Colorado, Missouri, let's see who else, probably, I don't know about Louisiana. They got a lot of liberals in Louisiana, but I'm sure in the remote parts of Louisiana, there's a lot of conservatives and people like that. But you get my point. A lot of the southern states are going to be more inclined towards liberty and peaceful separation because the contract has been broken. So, as a businessman, I know when I sign a contract with someone and I agree to do these certain things, the contract stands as long as I do those things that I say I'm going to do. But as soon as I stop doing those things that I claim I'm going to do, the contract is null and void. It's broken. Well, they've broken the contract with the Constitution of the United States. They're not recognizing the Constitution as their basis for creating new laws and things like that now. It's just whatever they want that's going to get them the richest. This is the robber barons of the 21st century, robbing us blind right before our eyes. You think that $36 billion that Biden just signed over to the unions of the train unions and stuff like that, you think that they're not going to get some kickback off of that? You got another thing coming. Every time they sign deals like that, they're getting sweetheart kickbacks. If nothing else, for their pet projects and for their states and whatever. So I guarantee you, people are going to be skimming off the top of that deal, just like the Zelensky money, just like the deal with that, what's it called, FTX, and that Sam Bankman-Fried, or whatever the guy's name is, the guy that looks like he's got a Q-tip on top of his head. The last person that I would be investing money with, but somehow or another, Mitch McConnell and several other rhinos and all the Democrats had invested in this guy. I mean, isn't that weird? And now they're not prosecuting the guy. That's the most weirdest part about the whole deal. I mean, this is bigger than Enron, and they're not even arresting this guy or going after him. I find that unusual. I guess it all depends on who you give your political donations to. If you grease the wheels in the right place, then I guess you're exempt from the law. That's my point. Double standards all over the place in this country now, and we shouldn't be tolerating it. So you've got the possibility of peaceful separation. I think that would be the best thing that we could do. Separate the country, go back to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, as the absolute supreme law of the land in the new Republic of the United States, or whatever we're going to call it. I don't know. That's above my pay grade, but that's what I think needs to happen. Several states need to join together and start pushing for secession. The other possibility, which I'm not favorable of, but it appears more likely, because there's not very much organization on our side. The people that support liberty and freedom, we don't have a very solid organization. Our people are the silent majority, let's just put it nicely. Anyway, the reality is, the other possibility is we continue to let this stuff go until one of two things happen. They disarm us and we're totally enslaved from there forward throughout the rest of time, or some sort of a civil war. And I don't want that. I think, and it would be a violent civil war. I do not want that. I do not promote that. I think it's the worst option. The best option would be peaceful separation, in my opinion. So, guys, I don't want to go on too long here and rant just too long, but I've just been very frustrated here lately about not only my ability to talk about these sorts of things in a place that's supposed to be called the land of the free, the home of the brave, the United States of America. I'm being muzzled. My channel's being suppressed. So if you like these videos, if you like people that are willing to come out and take risks and share their thoughts in this Orwellian tyrannical world that we're living in, then please support me. Go down in the comments, write a comment, tell me what you think about all of this stuff, everything you're seeing around the country. I just barely scratched the surface on all the horrible news that's going on right now. Violent crime is through the roof. They're letting people out of prison out in California and closing prisons down. I mean, guys, this is what a buddy of mine years ago, like 20 years ago or so, was telling me a lot of this stuff. And I swear, everything he said is coming true. Everything. They're pushing for not only LGBTQ stuff everywhere in schools. I'm sure you heard about the Project Veritas video that I can't even say what the teacher did, but this teacher at a private school was setting up this LGBTQ story time or whatever, and adult things were happening behind closed doors, and he said that was his favorite part of his job. And worse than that, the school is not going to fire this guy. I mean, I'm telling you, it feels like the gates of hell have been opened up. And it may just be that we're in that time now, talked about in Revelations 13, where the next thing you know, it'll be the mark of the beast and the one world government, and the Antichrist will come back or something. I mean, that's how bad things are getting, because normal people, good people, are allowing bad people to do these things unchecked, and they're not standing up to evil. We have to stand up against evil. That's part of our job. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, I stand for liberty. I hope you do too. And I mean to the bitter end.